So one of the things that I really wanted to do before we move into this next verse,
Yeah.
again, review is good, but as I was going through breaking it down, because again, in English, you wouldn't see the movement of the letters. You wouldn't see the additions and the deletions. And so they might use the same word, but it's written differently.
Mhm.
And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So this progression of what's going on, I think it's important. And so I'm really glad that I went back a little bit further to go, oh, wait a minute. There's some things that are going on here in this progression of our verses that we need to not lose track of. So I'm going to show that to you before we move into this one, which is then all the virgins arose and trimmed their lamps.
Mm.
Now, I will say that one of the things, every time we see rise or rose or arose, we automatically connect it to the scent of the rose
Okay.
because they rose up, they are rising. So I'm just throwing that out there, that there's a dot connect there with the scent of the rose, thing that Ken extracted, the prophetic word that he extracted
Yeah.
those years ago. So this is also connected to that. What I wanted to point out to you was one of the words. This is very interesting. I'm moving down a little further, but I really we need to have this frame of reference before we move into this verse and dig it out.
Okay.
Verse 25, in regards to the word virgin, when we looked at it the very first time, it had a fallen noon on it. So I put that in brackets. So it had a fallen noon on it, but now it has the tav aleph. So through the previous 6 verses, the fallen noon was removed, and now we have the tav aleph. So something happened in that progression that we need to not lose track of, because we're seeing this now because of the way the root of the word is. That noon was added on that word. It had nothing to do
Mm.
with the root itself. It was added. So in this with virgin, that fallen noon was placed on there, saying that this was a fallen seed of light. This had to do with a fallen flesh, and that is where they were in verse 1.
Mm.
So from verse 1 to here, we have the change of now the tav aleph. So this has nothing to do, there is no fallen flesh. This is now the connection of the tav aleph. So that was one of those huge, I was like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. So that morphed, and I didn't catch it before.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
And then here's the other one. In the previous verse that we went over last week, here is what the word meeting looked like in the first verse. Lamed, Aleph Vav Resh Ayin. But this time, what we went over last week, it had the hay added.
Mm.
So this Resh Ayin could have been seen in verse 1 as meaning evil, because that's Resh Ayin. But now, with the meeting, the hay was added to it, Father's revelation, which makes this a feminine word. And now the word for evil is changed to meaning a shepherd, pasturing, to tend a flock, to associate with as a friend. So
Mm.
when we look at verse 1, I think if I take us back to the verse itself so I can show you. So in verse 1, when they came out, the virgins, when they came out, they were in the fallen flesh status here. And when the bridegroom came for the meeting, right there was no hay. So this
Mm.
bridegroom, groom, and the bride that came out, as though they were teaching shepherds, right? That they were teachers of light, could have been seen as being evil or being the opposite message, because those that they were presenting it to were in the fallen flesh. So this is a huge progression that you would not see in English. You would have,
Wow, isn't that awesome?
I know, right?
Um,
So these are these
yeah.
little mysteries and secrets, this esoteric side of the letters of the
Yeah.
language, which in
Yeah.
reality wouldn't really be esoteric, because even if we were just reading it through plain mother's teaching of the letters, you would just see it.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, well, that's
Mhm.
not hidden. But English hides all of it. So I just wanted to
Mhm.
point that out, because it was like, these are huge changes
Mhm.
that need to be noted to see the progression of where we started and where we are at this point. So now
Yeah,
going,
I think these really legitimize, you know, this whole methodology because it shows progressions,
oh,
even from the
absolutely.
old to the new.
Yeah,
It's like hugely, I mean, you just can't get that from anything else, and it's very revealing,
yeah,
and
oh yeah, yeah,
it
and
totally shows you where, you know.
well, it's showing us how much English has obfuscated from us.
Yes.
No, it's one thing to go and talk to somebody who has a lot of biblical knowledge through the English interpretation and say, "Did you know that there's been a lot left out and been hidden from you?" That's very difficult to hear. And what do you do with that? I mean, really, what do you do with that? So, putting myself in the position of where I was like 10 years ago, and I was a strong proponent of the Bible in English, to have somebody come up to me and tell me and say, "Hey, did you know that about 90% of the information that you really need has been left out of the Bible because of the English interpretation?" I mean,
Mhm.
what do you do with that? Because that instantly puts fear in you, right? That
Yeah.
instantly shores up the
That's too
completeness.
hard to swallow
Well,
all at once.
it is. And so my hopes in being able to share these things like this is like, well, let's look, let me show you some of the things that are left out, and
Mhm.
then you can determine what that means to you. Does that mean that you maybe think that you might want to dive in and start looking for yourself? Or, is there a possibility that you might be missing some critical information?
Mhm.
And then they have to sort it out. But really, it's a measure of, is fear going to take them over because the beast is seated on the throne of their brain, the ego? Or are they a brave one that's like, whoa, maybe I should be looking at this? And that is like the first test to say, have you really um, tamed your ego?
Mhm.
Because if you don't have an ego that's tamed, fear is going to rise up and say no and push back instantly by anything that's new, because that's ego. That has nothing to do with spirit.
Mhm.
So, that again, the reason why bringing these things up is to gently lead people to say, let's take a look at this together so it's not so scary. you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
let's just
Yeah.
start uncovering some of these things so that you can get excited about it instead of
Mhm.
fearful about it.
Mhm.
So,
Yes. Yes.
in this process of what we haven't seen, we can see that these changes are really big and they mean
Mhm.
something specifically to us. I mean, even into verse 2, when we were looking at the number 5, that was the gematria for Mashak, having to do with anointing and oil. The gematria is the exact same. And
Mhm.
then we were also looking at the progression of the foolish, right? We were looking at the wise that were here. They both had fallen noons. So following the progression here, they both had fallen noons, both of them, the wise and the foolish. So they fallen flesh, fallen natures, fallen seed planting. And then as we're progressing, what happened first, the very first ones, and if we remember when we were talking about the foolish, it meant the foolish went away and pondered these things. So they didn't flat out reject it. They were just like, I need to go think about this and I need to consider this. I'm
Mhm.
not going to do it right now. Just let me go and consider this. But they were the first ones, because in verse 3, they were the first ones that came back with the mark. They were the
Yeah.
first ones that came back with the mark. The ones that
Mhm.
went away and pondered it. They didn't flat out reject it, although that we did see in duality, some will flat out reject it again, like we were just talking about fear,
Mhm.
ego.
Mhm.
If the ego is on the throne of the brain, that's what's going to happen. But a brave one that's willing to consider and think about these things. It reminds me of the Bereans. Remember in the New Testament where it says they went and they searched the scriptures daily to see if
Mhm.
these things were so. So if we're
Yes.
going to connect it to an English scripture, there are those that are going to seek and ponder before they just flat out reject to see if
Mhm.
it is so. And that's what we're doing right now by excavating. It's like, okay, here's these new ideas coming in. Let's search the scriptures to see if they're true. And lo and
Mhm.
behold, here they are. It's validating it.
Yeah.
So they were the first ones. They were the first ones that got marked. And then when we went to the wise, then we can see the wise, then they got marked. But they put the foolish first, which is interesting. The foolish were the first ones to get marked, but we have to keep that in mind. And then we were talking about the tartame, about the two different kinds of sleep that, the drowsy, so that when some of these
Mhm.
messages that are deep come in, if the body is not spiritually ready for it, people will start sleeping, slumbering, yawning, because the spirit is protecting them. They're not ready yet. They are
Mhm.
not ready to wake up out of their slumber. And
Mhm.
then we had the slumber that was initiated with the analogy of being in the grave, that they're dead, they're just dead. We're the walking dead. Ken and I, we were discussing the other day that as soon as you enter in here, you've entered into death, because you have a flesh suit, and our lower flesh suit has an expiration date on it. At least that's
Mhm.
what we've been programmed to believe. And so we've entered into death, because really eternal life is on the other side of our flesh suit,
Mhm.
our spirit energy being. So
Mhm.
anyway, taking all of that into consideration, and then we moved into the dividing of the night, which was a huge teaching in of itself about the revealing that happens. I'm not going to go into deep on this, but this
Mhm.
was where the light shepherds actually came, and they were being revealed now as the companions and the friends, that they were bringing forth this message of the oneness of mother and father that are connected in covenant, that this really was a picture of the marriage, the sacred wedding in the uniting of one, and that they were coming to instruct in the way of light as the shepherds, and that was what the meeting was all about. We had some really good revelations on this, but again, don't want to go too deep because we've already got all those. But we can see the progression and everything, and what happened with
Yeah.
specifically that position of the meeting, the revelation of Father's teaching, and also the time of the revealing. So it's
Yes.
revelation or to reveal. So this is the time of the revealing of the light teachers.
Yes.
So now, in the time of the revealing, now we're moving into verse 7. In the time of the revealing, then all the virgins arose, scent of the rose, and prepared their lamps. There's some actually really cool stuff in here, and so it'll be good to dig this one out. But this is going to be a very pivotal transition verse when we step into verse 8, because there's so much that's going on here. So let's move down into my notes now. So the very first word that we were looking at in this verse that they translated as then, the meaning behind it, that the Peshitta, the authors that went ahead and put this together, put then, afterwards, and next, but they didn't let us know that this is actually a compound word. It's the compound word. It should be a hey vav, and then the dalet yod nun, but it's a compound word. So hey vav is just simply one of those words that means that one, and those that have the revelation that they've connected to. And then the dalet yod nun is one of those now words. We have hasha, and then we have the
Mhm.
deen. It's a now word, and so this and now. But the vav was removed. So with the compound, the vav was removed and the yod was put in place, which is very interesting to me, that the
Mm.
vav. So the revelation of the vision of mother, which is the door to the vision of father, while in the flesh. So in the previous verse was the meeting. The meeting was coming at the middle of night. We were talking about how light and night had become one with Hallel and Lila, that it was the unifying of one, and it was the time of the meeting. And this is the next word. And it's then, afterwards, or next. So when this revelation, when the revealing of the teachers of light, now we're moving into what happens afterwards. What happens afterwards? So it's the revelation of both of the visions that were the door to one another, that is actually judging, Dalet Yod Nun, is actually judging those who are still in fallen flesh. Because remember, in one of the previous teachings, we were talking about making our garments of light. They took their lamps and their vessels with oil, and it was light garments. We saw that we were building our light garments. And then this time of midnight happens, and the light teachers, they are revealed as being light, that they are the true shepherds. And now here is the revelation that is judging those who didn't match that frequency. This is what's happening afterwards of that revelation coming. And because it was the twin visions, the one of mother and father, that was leading that vision of mother, power, means, and direction to go through the door, to give you the power from father's teaching to deal with your fallen flesh. So in other words, the teaching shepherds are revealed as light. They made their light garments. When they are revealed, they are going to be bringing the revelation to those who are in their own sense of judgment, right? It's the revealing. No one's pointing fingers. You are a sum total of what your journey entailed. You either are or you are not, based upon your ingathering. That's all it is. It's, what did you do? What was the work and deed, Yod? What was the work and deed of your hand? So bringing us back to this, so this is after the light shepherds are being revealed as light. So this is a revelation that is coming. So they're going to bring the revelation of why the others are in judgment, because again, the judgment is just, it's like it's the number 9 really being manifest, because the number 9 is judgment and completion, and we're judging ourselves here. So it's like nothing has to be said, because the separation is going to be made apparent. There's going to be those who are of the light, and then those who are not. But those are the teaching shepherds that are your companions and friends, that are here to reveal to you why that happened.
Yes.
Because they hadn't completed their journey, and it's the revelation of that fallen flesh. So it's really cool to see this. And again, this is a compound word, and so you wouldn't be able to comprehend it. That again, we're talking about the covenant of the pieces. So the covenant of pieces of mother who has been divided from father and walking with the torch is the seraphic message that is being given to us as the covenant of promise. So this is what they're revealing, is like, mother and father, here's this covenant of process that is the door to the inward revelation that you needed to get rid of that weak and feeble part of you, which is your fallen flesh, is your ego. And a lot of it would probably be related to fear, again, because at the very top message, this is going to be radical for some to receive it. And some of it are literally going to consider it as being evil or doctrines of demons, because it is so outside of what the Church of Rome presented, and all of its daughters have presented for what, 1500 years, 1800 years. So, this is something that's been around for a long time, and it's going to be challenging doctrines, but this is going to reveal those things. So I found it was really interesting too, that when I was looking at the word judgment, I love this. This is really cool. So in Hebrew, the Dalet Yod Nun, the last portion of the word, the now, it means the suit, justice, sentence, and tribunal. So this is really judging our actions of, well, we are at crunch time. It is here. It's like, it's here. But the root they put as roy a straight course or to sell direct. To sell direct. Now it's the exact same gematria as this word, dalet yod nun. It's just different vowel points, slightly different, same letters, same frequency, but they put Roy a straight course. Well,
I
Roy,
don't know what Roy means.
well, because it's not a word,
Yeah.
but so I decided to trace this a little bit because it might have been to row a straight course, right? Maybe it was a typo, but this word Roy, when you trace it in name, means red and it means king. So if you can connect this to Adam, red, Rudy, right? Red,
Mhm,
that's what
mhm.
Adam is. And then king, this is the kingly straight course for Adam.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah. And the Dalet Nun also means, when we trace it all the way back to just its parent root of the Dalet and the Nun, the door to life, right? Dalet Nun, door to life, when we were looking at that before in Paleo Hebrew, and what the judges are doing is restoring life to the people. It also means power and might, power and might. And then it gets activated. So the Dalet Nun gets activated through the vision that is put between the fallen flesh and the door that reveals. As a judge, it's like you have now power and might to deal with your fallen flesh. If you listen to the revelation that is coming to you, because it's meant to be the door to the seed of life, so that you can be perpetual, so that you can produce an heir, as an heir being as a king or queen, prince or princess, heir to the throne. And we have it being given to Adam, was red, and king, as a kingly course to sell direct, to have a straight course. Anyway, interesting, because when you look at the tree of life, even through the system of Kabbalah, that center path is the straight course called the path of the arrow. And it literally is leading you straight up to the Keter, to the crown, where the light is activated. And we're talking about king. And in Hebrew, king and queen is the same word. Melech can be king or queen. So interesting, all of that connected with the revelation that is going to happen afterwards, after the teaching shepherds are revealed, the ones that are of light. So there's always multiple opportunities. If you don't become the first of the first fruits, right? And you've got the barley bride and the wheat bride, this revelation is coming to you over and over and over again, because it's always a hopeful message. Like, now it's you got to do something now. You
Yeah.
procrastinated, you loitered around. Now it's time that you have to do work. And that goes against the grain of the Christian principles and some of that they taught, because they'll say, oh, you have a workspace faith, right? And we don't have to work for anything. Well, that is not really the truth. The Yod tells you that there's a work indeed of your hand that must be done to deal with your fallen flesh nature. So that's what that first word is revealing to us. Then, this is the beautiful part. The next word is to rise, stand, and establish. This is the word kum. So if you want to think of Qumran, this was the beginning part of why they named themselves Qumran. And Resh
Oh,
Nun means song. It means the wren's song. So these are the standing songs. Like,
wow.
yeah. So kum, to stand and to rise up. This word is really, really big. Now, Janet Magura's work with Light of the Word Ministry and all the research that she did through all the resources to gathering with Aramaic, she says that this word is really a kuf vav mem, that it's supposed to have the vav in the middle of it.
Mm.
The Peshitta doesn't, the one that I was looking at, they don't say, they say that the root is just kuf mem. So take it, all I know is that for me, what I've seen repeatedly is that we must connect to source on the inside, to that spark of source creator as we are. That's what lights us up so that we are aware that we are creator. And then it makes sense when you look at it because the kuf is compressing light in the circle of time.
Mhm.
You know, that which was hidden now being revealed, finding the narrow path between both of them that you're connecting to, where now you're in the waters above of shalom. So this vav to me is crucial. So without having it, it's rising and standing without having that place. Now, what makes sense to me that it wasn't written with a vav is because this is the time of judgment of those who weren't revealed as light. So if they weren't revealed as light, they didn't connect within.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they're rising and they're standing, meant to have compressed light and be part of the waters above, but they didn't make the connection to source creator as creator on the inside of them. And that's why this revelation has to come to show them,
Mhm.
because the door, right? Door, you have to go through the inward man. You got to go on the inside to have it revealed to you so that you can deliver yourself of the lower flesh because you never connected to that door on the inside. You never went in to compress light. You skipped a step. So you think that you're rising and you're standing and you're established because somehow you got the covenant. So trace it back so we can follow this. So both of them were marked with the Tav Aleph, that they got the Father's covenant, which means they went through the teachings. They were able to get marked with the Father's teachings, like you completed his education. Here's your diploma. You got mother's diploma. You have the frequency. You understand the oneness principle, but something didn't connect on the inside.
Mm.
Something didn't connect that it's like the way I'm seeing it is that you understand that we're one with one another, but there was something that didn't quite settle in you, that you are connected to being one with the creator as creator. So if you
Mm.
unity with your brethren,
So
but you
there's another step because once you graduated into father, you you know would think that that was it.
but if you're able to read through the codes, that's part of the mark. You can read the codes. You understand and you've worked
Mhm.
on this inside. You've dealt with your beast flesh. You've dealt with all of this, but there was something that you were missing. And that's why that other tav on the inside, when you see the tav placed on the inside, is so flippin' profound because
Mm.
that is connecting mark of the creator. Because remember, the way we've delineated it before, Yod He Vav He is a deity, parental source, seraphim, that are instructing the Elohim that are cherubim to rise up as Elohim, right? But there's
Mhm.
creator that's above that. There's source up here. Yod He Vav He are seraphim teaching instructions, mother and father meant to raise us up to become them, but there's still a source above. So you can match their frequencies without connecting to source up here. And that's the Tav on the inside.
Mm.
So the piercing is what is so critical, to be pierced on the inside, to be connected to the power that is there of source creator in you. It's not about just knowing and having the frequencies of mother and father. I've got this thing down. I know what the golden rule is. That's great. I can read the father's, I can dissect all the verses. If you're missing that inner connection, then you haven't completed the works, because there's like 3 toroidal fields that have to be activated for the Merkabah to happen. You know, you've got mother and father, but you have to have your heart toroidal field activated too. And that's why we're triune beings. That's why it's
Mhm.
vav, 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 666, one on
Mhm.
mother's side, one on father's side, and then the center being. They all
Oh,
have to be activated.
okay.
And
That's
that's
good.
why they weren't revealed as light, because they didn't
Mm,
have that inside piercing. They didn't have that.
mhm,
They were missing that. And it's interesting because this word also means to wake. So when
mm.
we were looking at the previous verses, this is connected. Rising and standing is having to do with waking up. So if they hadn't fully woke up yet, this is going to wake them up.
So that's putting way bigger definition on the awakening. It isn't just,
Well, I see the
a lot of
awakening.
people,
Yeah, I
I mean,
see it
I
as
think
two
we get
forms.
awakenings, but this is
I,
like the big one.
yeah, and the way I'm actually seeing it now, Regina,
Yeah.
I'm actually seeing that there's a three-pronged awakening. I
Mhm,
first see that the first one is when we wake up and go, oh my gosh, I don't live in Kansas anymore, meaning
mhm.
there is a lot deeper. There's nefarious sides. There's that thing called the Illuminati.
Yeah.
There's things that are going on that I didn't know, that there was nefarious agendas that I didn't know because I was living in ignorance. Then the second one is when we are awakened to the spiritual path. So we first have truth, like the truth movement, right? So we've got the truth movement, then all of a sudden there's the spiritual awakening. And then the third prong is the
Mhm,
creator awakening. And I
mhm.
see that as the awakening to the knowledge that we are Elohim. That's the Vav that's on the inside. So mother brings truth, father brings that really deep spiritual path. And the third Vav that pierces us is the recognition that we are creator, that we are Elohim.
That's really good, Carrie. Yeah.
So that was just a fairly recent revelation to see the progression of like, oh, well, that totally makes sense because that's the Tav
Yeah.
on mother, the Tav on father. You found the truth. You realize we're not in Kansas anymore. You found the truth of father, that there is a deep spiritual path. And then you found the truth that you are Elohim. So now from your 666 as a carbon-based being, now you have the Tav added to it, that you are in covenant in all three parts of your being as a triune
Mhm,
being, interfacing as one. And so in this instance, these afterwards didn't have the creator part within them. They didn't have that piercing on the inside, connecting them to the fact that they are creators themselves. And so they missed that step. They had the other two, they just missed this one.
mhm.
And so then now this leads us into, because okay, so looking at this word a little bit more, this is meant to lift up, to establish, ordain, appoint, place, put forward, confirm, that they didn't have the Vav. But it's meant to, but they have to then wake up to the fact that they were missing that element, because this is really like in a static position. The way they've written it is it's static, meaning it was never activated, right? It is potential, but the Vav wasn't on the inside, so it never fully, it never had the fullness of the becoming of being to be established as one who stands, because that center piercing is the fullness of sovereignty. It is the fullness of it because you are Elohim.
Mhm.
What does anything of the lesser realms have against you? They don't, because now you understand it. You understand that you are the God that reveals the goddess as Elohim. You created this. Now we're creating the resolve to the mess that we made.
Mhm.
Right? And that's why the light shepherds have to come to say, hey guys, the rest of you that didn't quite connect this, let's reveal the rest of the message to you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so then that leads us right into the next word, which makes sense because this is everyone, whole, entirely. Everyone is going to know and see this revelation has come to empower their fallen flesh. And again, we've already talked about that Kaflamet in Aramaic is bride and also means crown. So it's like, again, if you haven't gotten it and you didn't make that third connection, this revelation is coming to you one more time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, when you look at it and marrying the Hebrew to it, Kaflamed He means completed, finished, completed, destroyed, perished, was spent, was consumed, he pined and wasted away. Like there's many, many, many interpret or definitions of this word. It takes encompassing completed, ended, finished, accomplished, fulfilled. So there's duality here. There's going to be those that who completed the journey, which are the shepherds that were revealed. And then there are ones that didn't, that have to have this revelation. And it's going to be one of those things about connecting to pining, suffering mental and physical decline because of a broken heart.
Mm.
Because how would one feel in the day of the revealing if they thought they were on the path that they were supposed to and they found out that they missed a step?
Yeah.
And this is why the teaching shepherds have to come with such compassion, having the mercy in the judgment message, because the judgment is it's the revealing is going to happen, but then the mercy has to come to be able to reveal and help those that are going to have a broken heart, that somehow they missed a step and they thought that they had everything. And I find it's interesting that the first three letters of this word is actually the same gematria for to walk.
Mm.
The revelation of the instructions that will give you what you need to empty your cup in order to be able to grasp a hold of the language that's going to bring revelation to you. That is the same gematria for the first three letters of this word, is the walk. So in other words, because they missed a step, it's going to be seen that it was because of their walk. They didn't have the instruction that they needed to empty out that which didn't produce light, because it was a fallen language that didn't bring them the vibrational frequency that they needed so that they could be crowned with light. Because we were all meant to. We were all virgins. We were all coming out as those that were to go through the process, all of us.
Yeah.
So again, it's grasping a hold. So now the cup is turned upright. We've emptied the cup out. This is a cup that is now willing to be bent to the teachings to fill their cup, the instructions that bring the revelation, that give them the power to deal with the flesh. So when we look at the progression, how beautiful is it? So the teaching shepherds of light are revealed. It's the time of judgment, but they're going to bring this revelation to you so that you're empowered, so you can see the vision of the mother. You can go through the door that reveals what you need to get the power of the Father to deal with your flesh, because you thought that you were going to be able to rise and stand, but you missed a step. And you're going to be fully awake at this point to see that you missed it. But now you have an opportunity through your walk, empty out the cup and realize you got to fill it up with the risen language, the words that bring the ability to rise and stand, the instruction that you need to deal with your fallen flesh. This is such a hopeful message. If people
Mm.
can see this, so that we can be equipped, if we are revealed as those teaching shepherds, right? We're not going to know until that point happens. I would like to believe that my work would allow me to do that, as we all would, because there's many different ways to accomplish this. You don't have to do it just through the languages. There's going to be many revealed that are of the light, teaching shepherds. They had a different path, but they still found it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing and hoping and believing that my path has led me there. But even if it doesn't, because of the language, I will be able to be one that can help assist. If I didn't make that cut, if I didn't qualify, I will still be able to assist because I can see the path through here and I see the hopeful message. So it still gives me hope regardless. It's like whether I'm on this side or this side doesn't matter, because I can see the roadmap. It just means I got to dig a little bit deeper because maybe there was something I missed on the inside that kept me from having all of my Merkbah activated. And I'll be able to be okay with that because this is such a hopeful message. Because I know that as soon as that light is activated and I am seeing somebody that is revealed, I am heading in that direction. you know, like, oh, you got the answers. I missed it. There's something I missed. So I have questions. Let me sit at your feet and you can just teach me. Just teach me, because I need to figure out what I missed. Because I'm hopeful, because I know if you did it, then you have the keys I missed something. So help me out, please. And that's why the teaching shepherds come, because they have that merciful message to say, let's take you through the process. Now you know, now you're fully awake. You are loved so much that this message is now being revealed to you again. You're going to have to go through the threshing process because you didn't get winnowed. You know, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because the squeeze of time is way intense, but
Yeah.
it's here. You know, now you're just going to really have to roll up your street sleeves and you're going to have to work. You're going to really have to dig, but we can do it and we're going to do it together. So it's very hopeful. I see it
Mhm.
as being very hopeful. So one of the things too, when now moving on to this, so we were looking at the all whole entirely. The next word is again this risen word of the virgins. So this verse is the progression of taking us from that fallen flesh, those that didn't cut to make the cut, to then have all of them be in this form. Because this is what's most critical. This is absolutely most critical, is we have to have the covenants of mother and father. But notice that Bethula, it has the piercing. So there's a connection that's already made at the heart level. But
Mhm.
now they have the covenant. They've been marked with mother and they've been marked with father. And here's a little key point too that I think is very interesting. When you look at this minus the vav, tet lamed tet, or sorry, tav lamed tav in Aramaic is the exact same as the Hebrew word shalosh, meaning three. And but now both sheens are gone, right? The sheens are off, which means you went through the consuming fire of mother that instructed you. That was the instruction so you could go through the consuming fire of father. Now you're marked with both of their covenants. So you consumed what was necessary to get rid of the lower flesh nature on both sides of the teaching. Because again, mother deals with taming the beast, orienting yourself on the outside of your life, of how you're going to interact with people, how you're going to position yourself with reverence to looking that Elohim, that there's a measure, right? There's a reverence to the level of attainment of godhood. And then fathers is dealing with some of the inside junk and diminishing the beast ego so that you can be marked in oneness. And so they connected at the heart level. So there was something that already connected them in the heart level in the beginning of the journey, even though they were in their fallen flesh.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Ideally, you know, there would be the progression of mother, then father, then, the connection to God and realizing your Elohim. But I wonder if some people do that out of order, or if you can do it out of order. And I would say that
The difficult
yes.
part though with that,
Yeah.
Regina, the difficult part, and when we get to release his teachings, because they've been videotaping him on camera, Ken's been using the whiteboard, which I think is actually really good for what he's bringing, is that you absolutely have to go to the right hand first. You have to go through mother's teaching. The
Before you
diff-
can even see the rest. Yeah.
well, here's this gets into some deep stuff, and I'll let Ken talk about it. But when you go on the left-hand path, that is the mysterious, that's the hidden. If you do not have mother's right orientation first before you get in the hidden, this is what would be considered the dark. You don't have the balance over here. And this is the marriage of both sides. So if you
Mm,
don't have right, you're going to be seen as dark without the light. And we
mm,
just saw the up above where we were talking about the light and the night becoming one. You have to have both. You have to go through the right hand side to start the journey, which is then giving more light in you, because that's the whole point of mother's teaching. She starts
mhm.
bringing light in you and increasing your consciousness to lift you out of the beast. But if you're only on the dark and you're going, because that's really the full power side, and you haven't dealt with this side, there's no light. You are out of balance.
Mhm.
You went strictly for power and
Yeah,
not service.
sure. That
So
makes so much
you,
sense.
yeah, so you're totally lopsided. That's why mothers is so important, because she teaches the humility and the teachability, right? And that's where the light begins to increase, so that when you enter into the dark, into the mysterious, because that's all it means, when you enter into the mysterious of the dark, you now have the balance between the two, and you can bring them both together into one. So the importance is you have to have your heart pierced. That's what the VAV is all about. You have to have the heart pierced. So the heart chakra has to be activated, and that's the place where the source spark dwells. You have to have it. And so these virgins at the very beginning, they had that. There was something that was connecting, at least being pierced in their heart to begin them on their journey. It was like, oh, I liken it to when I was saved. I use that term because that's what was brought forth in the Christian church. But I remember distinctly at 7 years old when I really said my first prayer with my parents, inviting the presence of Father in me. And I remember there was something supernatural that happened, and it made me cry. I will never forget that. It was like something happened in me, this spark, something happened, and I felt a tangible change in my heart. And it marked me. I mean, it started my whole journey at 7 years old. I have never, ever, ever forgotten that. And I can't describe it other than it felt like this warming sensation that was overwhelming me. And I just
Mhm.
started crying. It was something that was physical that
Mhm.
happened to me, that I experienced, that was supernatural, that I wasn't aware of until I made that prayer and asked for that really like quickening. I guess, I mean, that's maybe that's the word to use instead of some of the Christianese that I've used before. It was an awakening process that started when I was 7, connecting to the divine in me, that source spark that made something come alive that wasn't
Mhm.
there before.
Mhm.
That's what I see right here. Whenever I see that vav piercing, is the piercing of the heart that begins to activate a desire for something more than what you are in your flesh.
Mhm.
There's something higher. Now, I will say, I was looking at, and I got to look at my book again here because I forgot it this morning and I forgot to type it. I was looking into some deeper of the words in my little Klein's etymology book. I just love this book.
Mhm.
It goes so much deeper than Strong's Concordance. It's my go-to, my go-to now. When we were looking at the word bot, where we mean for daughter, one of the things that bot means that I hadn't seen before, it means worthy of and deserving.
Mhm.
Worthy of and deserving. I'm going to type it on my list so I don't. I thought, oh, for sure I'm going to remember this, and I didn't. So the Bet Tov, as we've always talked about, is the 222 process, the two paths of the 22 letters, where we are building the covenant of love. When we go from Ben to Bot, from son to daughter frequency shift, that has to do, Ben has the fallen flesh, it has the fallen noon. So when we become daughter, Bot, then we have risen that nature. It is no longer a flesh issue. It is a complete spiritual journey that we went on to build ourselves to be marked with that covenant frequency. And
Mhm.
now that's elevated to the place of being deserving, be worthy and deserving. There we go. I typed it twice. I guess I meant to just put worthy. So worthy and deserving is because you built yourself. This is the part of where the rub with the Christian message is that one man did it for you and now you're worthy and deserving. But in the Hebrew language, that only comes through the bet, which means build. That's through the work and deed of your hand, which was the whole point of what was up here. The work and deed of your hand, that is going to be the door to go in so that you can do the work and deed of your hand with Father's teaching to deal with your flesh. So it takes work to build, to become this. And it's interesting too that this word Bethula also includes a chaste young man. So we have male and female that are both being presented here. So this, it makes no difference. So what I'm seeing is it's the definitely the bend to the bot. So it's male and female that are being unified because you built yourself together as one through the Tav, both Tavs, leading to the oneness principle. So again, this revelation is coming so that the wedding can take place between the male and the female becoming one. And the reason why I brought up the triune or the three, the shalosh, is because we're triune beings, you know, as above, so below. You know, Christianity is the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? But really, that is a description of us as a triune being, body, soul, and spirit.
Mhm.
And so the shalosh becomes this word right here, the tav lamed tav. So you're not in the fire anymore. You went through the consuming process. You're now done with that. So that's why this process of seeing what happened from the first appearance of virgin to this virgin is pretty phenomenal to see that they will get the message. So those that are in the brokenhearted state, if they will pay attention to this now, then it looks they will rise up because they will see that they needed to separate themselves, learn the Father's teaching, the hay, so that they could be marked with the tav, because that's always the progression. Father's teaching has to be revealed to you first so you can connect to your higher self, so that when all of this is done and completed, you're then marked as one who's completed that process because your frequency is different. I love that. I just love that. There's so much hope. And
Yes.
we're almost done. We just have three more.
Yeah.
We have three more words here.
Mhm.
After the virgin and all of this, oh, actually, I should, one more thing that I needed to ask or add to this. I think it's interesting, and I highlighted it. I don't know why I didn't say it, but this word here, Bethula, also means two posts that are supporting a beam. Now, post and pillar is an idiom for priests.
Mhm.
So if we look at Melchizedek, kings and queens, crown, the whole thing, this has to do with a priesthood. And the priesthood's whole job is to be able to be answers for those who have questions. That's their job. We've got this whole thought of what the priest is that has been really kind of damaged with the way it's been presented to us in so many fashions, whether it's from the Church of Rome, whether it's with the Pharisees, the Pharisaical system, not the Sadducees. They actually put things against the Sadducees when those were actually the priests of light from Qumran. But that's another story for another day. But this is the priesthood that is being established here because now they all have answers, right? Now we have answered the question of how do we become? We've all done it. So we become the supporting pillars, and it's two posts, mother and father. It's mother and father to support the beam, and the beam is our covering. So we have to have the support structure to have the covering to support the
Yeah.
beam that has covered us. And then you can look at it as the lentil where we put the blood, symbolic, meaning the covenant of promise. The covenant of promise goes through mother and father to make it happen. It's all about teaching us the way of one and getting to this point right here. So then we get into this word, this and these, but the root is hey noon, but this is all about the instruction of you on the inside. This is letting you know that this revelation has to come to instruct you on the inside to give you the vision that you will pass on to your progeny, but you have to do it, and then you have to become the teacher of it, because this was added instruction on the inside. And again, when we go back, we keep talking about, or I'm talking about the vav on the inside. of being pierced. And what helps with that is the instruction that happens on the inside. So if this is also from the liquid measurement hen, hey noon, the liquid measurement, hey noon also means behold and yes. So again, this would be behold, the instruction meant for the inside to give you power that they're saying yes to, or they did say yes to. That's why this happened before, because they took a hold of it. Now we have restored, restore, and establish. So before, that's why it's so beautiful. Before, they were coming up believing that they were established, that they were standing as an established one. But then it was revealed to them that they were not. But through the process of what's being brought to them, now having the instructions for the inside that gives them power, now they're restored and they're established. Put right. Because the revelation came to them and they took the instruction and they did the work on the inside, that which they were missing from the cum that was above. And why they were heartbroken, because they missed something, and it was the inward instruction that was necessary for them to be established and restored. And this is what is so fascinating, because we were talking about balance. The Hebrew word right here, tav kuf nun, means to equalize and to straighten. And remember, we were talking about the Roy, a straight course, the red, and the king. This is to straighten them out, to equalize both measures. I love this. And this is to equalize, make the same in quantity, size, or degree through a place or a group, to make uniform. Equal to. So in other words, those who came as the teaching shepherds, the ones that didn't have it, this whole process is so that they can become the same equal measure as those who came from before that were already revealed to them as light teachers. That's so incredible.
Yeah.
And then the kuf noon on the end of this is it's a word that means a nest, like a bird's nest, but it's also a cell or a chamber. So this, we're talking about the Hebrew wedding here. We're talking about being able to go into the intimate chambers. This is where the Holy of Holies is, that the activation takes place when we connect at our heart level to activate as His life. This is giving us the ability to enter into those intimate chambers as those who have been restored. You couldn't go into it before because you were missing that which was necessary. So this is saying now, what was added was you have now connected to the whole purpose of Mother's teaching. You became humble and teachable through the covenant, which allowed you to compress light within that you needed to deal with your fallen flesh. And then it leads us to our lamp and our light. Now, this is interesting because the process is that they're meant to be made equal to, but they're still missing something. And this I didn't catch before because I wasn't paying attention, but I'm bringing it to fruition now because I don't think I said this before. This is not the root of the word. The root of lamp and light is over here. Notice that the olives are missing. There is no olive here.
Right.
They don't have. And so what we were sharing before, this is Lamed Mem Dalet that has pay on the inside. This is instruction that is coming through the mouth that is speaking to them on the inside. And that makes sense because the instruction, we were looking at that up here, the instruction that is on the inside is the mouth that is speaking the risen language to you, so that your lamp then can be this one, lampada. It's having both the aleph added. Right now, what do we have? This is actually really cool too, because we have the word judge, dalit, yod nun, but in the middle of judge, we now have yod hey. We have the power of the revelation. And this right here, Regina, you've probably seen this many times. Hey yod hey is the active form of Hayah.
Mhm.
So Hayah, the revelation of mother, is the power that connects to the revelation of father. Now these are both of the visions, the work and deed of the hand, that reveal one another. This is the active
Mhm.
form of to be, to become, and to come to pass through the work and deed of your hand that is being revealed on the suffix side. This is fathers showing you that this is the root, the active form of the root, to lead you to become I am. The only thing that you're missing, because we were sharing that with you the other day when we were looking at the mystery of the I am, the only thing that's missing is the oneness principle, is the aleph. So there's still
Yeah.
something happening here. They haven't fully come through the process yet.
Mhm.
So they're getting the instruction, they're getting the language. It's to go ahead and equalize and bring them up where they need to, but their lamp, this important, they have to grasp a hold of this piece, the work and deed of the hands that reveal what they need to in order to do something with their lamp, to deal with their fallen flesh, so that they can have the place of 0 point energy where
Mhm.
everything's unified. Because this is that place of the lump of clay, are not kinetic, but potential energy. This is light as potential energy at 0 point. This is literally where source dwells, because the potential is there. There is no distortion on the good or the evil or the light or the dark. It's the place of is. It's where I am is, with no distortion, as everything's been rendered into one.
Mhm.
But they're not there yet. They still
Wow.
have to go through this. And that's where we're left off. So this is in days ahead. This is what we will be seeing. I have no idea when that time is. I don't know when that will be. You know, there's a lot to be said that potentially this would be something that would be activated in the fall with like the fall feast, because that's the ingathering of the summation of what you've done. You know, you've got entering in at unleavened bread, which is the covenant of promise, and then you have the feast of first fruits is the public declaration that I've entered into this covenant of promise, and then the wedding is to take place in the ingathering, the feast of ingathering. So there's a lot to be said that this activation of the light shepherds will be at the place of the ingathering, because when they come out of the bridal chambers, they would be changed, because they would have had become one. They would be revealed as the teaching shepherds of light that would then go and teach during the darkness, right? During the 6 month
Yeah.
darkness, to be able to get them ready to enter into the covenant of promise at the springtime. So I just put that out there because I can see it, but I'm not a date setter. I don't know when any of this happens, but that certainly matches through the teaching of why the feast days were there, because the feast that were in the book of the covenant is that whole marriage process, and that is what we're talking about here. That's what
Mhm.
this whole thing is the ancient Hebrew wedding, about those who were prepared early before the appointed time, and those that procrastinated, and that the messenger is still going to be coming to them, but they have to do something with the message
Mhm.
in the crunch time. So that's where we're leaving off on this, is that there's a lot of hope. And the one thing I missed on here too is this word about being restored. This is the idiom for mending a net. So if you have holes in your net and you've been missing things, you're repairing and restoring so that you
Mhm.
can grasp a hold of it.
Well, going through the feasts, you are, it's going to take more than more than one feast time.
Yeah,
Uh, it's a rehearsal, so you're rehearsing it every year until you get there.
exactly.
Yeah.
But potentially in crunch time, I don't know how many cycles people would
It
have.
could speed it up. Yeah, speed up the
It could
process,
be that we're literally at the 3.5 year mark,
right?
and that they would have 3.5 years to get it right.
Mhm.
We will know, I believe, that the revealing of the teaching shepherds of light are going to be marking that latter point of the cycle, because it's really crunch time. And 3.5 years, you've got 3.5 years to get it, but that's when the squeeze is going to get really much harder. And I believe that we've entered into that. I believe that 2017 was the big year, because we had the solar crossing. We also had the Revelation 12 sign appear. And based on their playbook, all of this is being utilized for us to be able to rise up into our sovereign stand in making these things happen, so that we can teach others how to rise up. Because that's what this whole verse has been about, is that they were coming out like they had made their stand and they were rising to the occasion, but they were missing a piece. And so then they get to go through the process of mending their net, finishing what they need to gather what they need, so that they have what they need in their lamp to become light and have an equal measure like those that did it before them. So that's what I'm seeing in this.
So if it started in 17, then we don't have 3.5 years. And 3.5 years is up almost.
Well, I'm saying I believe that we're into the last 3.5, that we've
Oh,
already crossed over that threshold.
that we started that. Yeah, I knew when this came out, right? Basically, the methodology became,
Yep.
to the public.
Yep. And because we launched it right around the last year, the Feast of Bekurim, the Feast of First Fruits. The one that is in the Book of the Covenant, that is, not the one in the Book of the Law, but the Book of the
Hmm.
Covenant,
Hmm.
because it matches with the Hebrew wedding. And
Hmm.
again, that's what all of this is about. It's
Yeah.
it's uniting everything in one, macro and micro, both.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful message. I mean, there's so much hope all over this, to see that time and time again, this revelation is coming, so that all will have it presented to them. And then
Hmm.
there'll be those that refuse it, but it won't be because there wasn't opportunity. That's what I see there, is that the opportunity is given over and over and over and over again, because light workers and light teachers are everywhere around the world.
Hmm.
They're everywhere,
Hmm.
and they will be revealed. So even though, when there's countries, there's a lot of people in the Christian message that say, well, this gospel message of Jesus has to go to these countries or else they're going to be lost. It's like, no, there's light workers everywhere that have been sent in every tribe, nation, and tongue,
Hmm.
that will be revealed. They went through a different path, but they're still being revealed as those who found the light. And
Hmm.
based on the culture that they are in, and the country and the nationality and all of that, and the practices, they are going to be able to take what they learned and present it to those that they are in kinship with,
Hmm.
because they have found the light through the path that was offered to them. So even in countries where things like seem to be really blocked, like in China, there's light workers in China.
Hmm.
And then there's nothing that the government can do to stop them, because at that point they will be changed.
Hmm.
So
There,
the
that's
message
probably
is to be,
where some of the most powerful ones are because it's
I
the
would agree.
darkest.
Yep. So regardless, this is just one path through the sacred languages that at least show us that there's a roadmap. That's what I love about this, is like, you can apply this to any religion that has light. It doesn't matter. There are teachings of mother and father, of what mother teaches external orientation, father internal orientation, and then the final work of connecting as a godhood. They all teach them. The only thing that doesn't seem to teach it is Christianity.
Mhm.
Christianity, Judaism, and I don't know much about the Muslim faith. I can't say, but I do know that there's still that separation. All the monotheistic religions out there really keep that separation, that man is never going to accomplish this, right? So it seems like those monotheistic religions are going to really struggle the most because all the other ones teach it. They all teach it.